Hey chess friends! Hope you are doing well. Today I am going to show you an insane chess game that was played between LeelaZero and me. In this game, LeelaZero made some very suspicious moves in the opening, so let's dive into the game to see what happens. I played e4. This game was played in the championship chess tournament, where instead of playing Ruy Lopez or knight f3, we saw knight f6, knight c6, and bishop to c4. In a few moves, we have c3 in order to play the d4 approach. This is the modern approach where the knight usually goes to d2, and I castle short. Then, LeelaZero played her first suspicious move, queen to e7. This is a very shocking and intense move. Instead of playing any natural moves like d6, moving out the bishop or the knight, we have castle, d6 and d4 striking on the board. Knight to d2 can be played, and at first glance, it attacks the center, forcing you to move back your bishop. When my bishop comes to the d5 square, she could have gone with bishop to d7. But instead, she goes with knight to d8. This is her second suspicious and intense move because it is very passive. I think she wanted to put her knight or bishop on e6 or bishop on g4, and she wanted to play c6. We have bishop to g5, and the knight blocks on f6. In a few moves, we have c6, and the bishop moves back to c7. She is trying to make the position very complicated and passive. She could have played castle, bishop e6 or even b5 or a5, which are just garbage. A couple of moves later, we have knight back to f8. What? This is a joke? Are you kidding me, LeelaZero? Why did you play knight to f8 for no reason? The knight is like a horse, traveling from c6 to d8, followed by e6 and then knight to f8 in order to go to g6 and f4. The knight is traveling worldwide. It blocks and makes the king's position complicated, which is why I decided to open up the center immediately. After all the big exchanges on the e5 square, I went with knight to c4, attacking the queen and making her position vulnerable on d6 because her king hadn't castled yet. After knight to d6 check happened on the board, the king moved up, and I immediately captured the pawn on f7, making the rook's position vulnerable. This position is very critical for LeelaZero because the bishop is standing on b3, targeting the rook. We have bishop to g4 attacking the queen, and playing f3 would have created a wasting situation for white, which is why after queen to d2, the rook comes to g8, noticing that the rook can be attacked by the bishop and the knight can eventually move back to initiate an attack on the rook. I decided to go with e5 attacking the knight. The knight cannot go to any usual squares because knight e4 will face queen to f4, attacking the pieces with the support of the knight. Even playing knight to d5 is wasted because I can move my knight back to d6. Putting pressure on the b7 pawn. Simultaneously, I am threatening queen to g5 to attack the queen and the bishop simultaneously. This creates a vulnerable situation for LeelaZero. Instead of moving the knight, we have knight to e6 at a dangerous level. This blocks the bishop's diagonal and also prepares to attack the knight and sacrifice the knight on f6, which was actually accomplished in the game. By playing rook to e1, it put pressure on the knight. We captured, and in this position, I sacrificed my rook on e6 because her king's position is very vulnerable and critical. After capturing on e6, we have queen to d7 check. Blocking the check by playing queen to e7 creates a vulnerable situation for you because I can capture your bishop by playing bishop takes e6. The queen cannot capture because it is pinned to the king. After moving the king back and capturing, I will grab your rook. In the end, you can see that the position is almost equal, but with an extra pawn, I have an advantage, and this endgame will be winning because I am Stockfish, and she is under low evaluation. So, let me share a beautiful quote for you. Self-discipline begins with the mastery of your thoughts. If you don't control what you think, you can't control what you do. Simply, self-discipline enables you to think first and act afterward. Going back to the position, we have the king moving back, and I capture the bishop on e6, attacking the rook. Your queen's position is just terrible. After queen to d3 check happened on the board, the king moved, and rook to e1 happened. Some may consider playing rook to e8 to put pressure on the bishop, but my rook can come to e3 to create a critical situation for your king by playing rook to h3, as the rook moves to safeguard the king and protect her position. b4 will come to deflect the queen. if the queen goes to g5, I can initiate with rook h3 check, then queen to d7 check, and it will win the rook. This position is just winning for me. Going back, when b4 was played to deflect the queen, instead of playing queen to g5, you might consider queen to f8, but it is also a bad move because I can play bishop to f5, as the rook moves, the queen moves back, which allows the king to go to a safe square, but it is also a bad move because the bishop is attacking that pawn, then rook h3 will come with a check, and after rook takes h7, followed by queen e6, this position is just winning for me. This will be a checkmate in one move. And I will win the game completely. So, going back to the position, we saw that rook to e8 is not viable, which is why after rook to e7 happens on the board, we have rook to e3 to check by playing rook h3, with the rook and queen forces attacking on h7, it will provide me a winning situation. As the king moves back, we have b4 to attack the queen cannot move back to b6 because my queen is attacking the h7 square. My queen can go to f5, giving me the opportunity to consider rook g3 or h3 to destroy your black position completely. You might consider playing queen to c7, but then comes rook to h3, attacking the pawn on h7, even though rook h8 looks reasonable, it is a completely rubbish move because I can consider rook g3, checking the black king, forcing it to move, and then queen takes f6 will arrive, attacking the rooks. This position is completely winning, believe me or not, with the king moving to e8, queen takes h8 will come, and this will be winning, and the checkmate will happen. Going back to the position, we saw that queen b6 is not viable, which is why we have queen to h5, finally, I played the genius move, rook to h3, creating pressure on the h7 pawn, and after queen g6 happens on the board to safeguard the pawn from being attacked by my queen, we have rook g3 attacking the queen. With the move rook e8, you cannot capture the queen immediately because this would safeguard the black king and threaten to checkmate me by going to the e1 square, with the bishop under attack. So in this position, instead of capturing the queen, I decided to play h4, creating some space for my king. After capturing on h5 and recapturing on the g3 square, black is left with two split pawns. As the king moves to the h6 square, we have queen to h5, and after a couple of moves, you can see that it is two rooks for the queen. By advancing my rook, I capture some of black's pawns. When the queen moves to d8, we have g4, and you can see that we have three pawns on the king's side to create some pressure. After a couple of moves, we have g takes f6, and you cannot capture back my pawn because queen to e7 can come, attacking the king and the rook. After a couple of moves, we have a queen check and queen to g4, I capture the pawn, and you can see that I bring three pawns on the board, which is just winnable for me. In a couple of moves, I move my king up all the way, and after a few more moves, I play f7 and promote to a new queen. In a few more moves, I checkmate her by playing queen to g7. It was a very astonishing and brilliant game. I hope you enjoyed it very much. If so, then don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. Wishing you all the best. Bye bye. See ya.